Hey, what's going on, everybody? Cody Hornaday here with another agronomy update. So I got a lot of things to talk about this week. I figured it might be easier just to jump on a quick video here, make a quick video rather than try to type it all out in a text. So anyway, a few things I want to talk about. One, planting progress. So the state of Indiana is at 2% progress for both corn and soybeans as of the Monday report. And if it feels like we're a little bit behind, that would be because according to the 5-year average, we are just a tick behind. 5-year average is more like 5% for corn and 2% for soy, or excuse me, 3% for soy. So we're a little bit behind on both fronts, but I mean, really as a state, we're close to normal. Now, arguably, I would say the southern part of Indiana is a little bit more behind than that, but still, you know, with all things considered, it's not been too bad. And thankfully, depending on which part of the state you're in, this past week has been a decent week for some running. We had a couple smaller rain showers come through, but no big, massive rain showers across too many parts of the state. So we've gotten a decent chunk of field work done this week, which is great. But we are starting to see more issues, right? So soybeans, I know I've talked about seed corn maggot in the last couple updates. Still seeing some of that. I want to emphasize that this is across multiple different brands and active ingredients in seed. At least to my knowledge, I'm not seeing any major differences between seed treatments. This is probably more of a product of the fact that a lot of those soybeans that were planted there at the end of the March had to stay underground for a long time. So I've seen seed corn maggot issues on 3 different active ingredients. I don't think it's a seed treatment. I don't know that there's a seed treatment out there that would completely stop this. I think what's going on is you're getting a lot of dilution from the time in which these plants have stayed underground. And then along with that, you're also giving that seed corn or those seed corn maggots more time to eat on those soybeans. So in a lot of cases, you know, if you get warmer weather, which we're headed towards, you can kind of outrun them a little bit. So, I think there's just a lot of things going on there. Thankfully, it's not been massively widespread, and we've warmed up enough now that I think we're kind of getting away from some of that. But to kind of compound that problem, we are running into some crusting. You know, there at the end of last week in some different places, we had some hard rains. They came fast, and then we got warmer, you know, windier conditions, created a little bit of a crust. So just be careful, be mindful of that, be walking those fields that got planted here in the last couple of weeks, see what that ground looks like, see what the conditions are, check and see if you're starting to get any plants breaking their necks, and begin to assess final stands. Now with that, I don't think this was real widespread, but I have seen some reports of frost injury on soybeans as well. Now, I don't know that this is probably going to be for north of Highway 50 for the most part, but I do think it's something to pay attention to. No-till ground will be worse because of that additional residue keeping the heat within the soil and not allowing the soil heat to kind of basically buffer that at surface temperature. So again, no-till areas will be worse. Low areas in the field will also be worse. And when you scout for this, just keep in mind, you know, you need to give it 5-6 days of some warm weather to really assess what the damage looks like. Thankfully, we've had that time since that frost there Monday morning. But, you know, pay attention to the hypocotyl color. So that the hypocotyl is that kind of shepherd's crook that we think about dragging those cotyledons up out of the ground. In worst case scenarios, you know, you'll see black, brown discolored tissue. That's typically a bad sign. Those plants probably aren't going to make it. Same way if you see a lot of discoloration of the cotyledons, typically if you see that, you know, that plant's probably going to die. Now, if you see green healthy cotyledons, but maybe that unifoliate was starting to come out, that piece could turn brown, but the auxiliary buds could still be alive. So what happens then is, you know, you've basically killed that main stem, but the auxiliary buds will allow it to branch out and create 2 main stems. So those are kind of the 2 different scenarios there. And then of course the last one would be, you know, an unaffected plant. So hopefully you see more of that than the other ones. But regardless, as you look at all those issues, whether it be crusting, frost, seed corn maggot, any of those things, you know, if you've got a good stand of an even stand of 70,000, I'm pretty happy with that as you look at stands at this time of year. Now, that changes the later we get, first of all. And then the other thing I want to emphasize here is that that's got to be even. You know, you can't have 40,000 here and 100,000 somewhere else and then 120,000, and then another 50. It's got to be a nice 70,000 that's even to make me feel good about it. But you know, any lower than 70, I think we're going to have to start considering some replant options, whether that be going back in and thickening them up, or you know, just starting afresh. So on the corn front, did see some frost damage on what little bit of corn we've got up in the area too. Nothing, you know, terrible, just your standard kind of a real pale yellow. You got some white bleached out tissue from the frost. Nothing terrible necessarily, but I have seen it, and right now most of the corn that's up looks pretty rough. That's just a product of the conditions. We get some heat, we get some warm, we get some sunshine. It's going to turn around. It's going to start to look a little bit better here. So there's your soybeans, your corn. I guess a little extra tidbit would be wheat. Think about fungicide on wheat here before too long if you've got that. You know, depending on where you're at, you know, wheat could be needing a fungicide here in the next couple weeks. I did see some stripe rust here this past week on some wheat, so I know, you know, not everybody's got it, but just a little extra tidbit here for this week's agronomy update. But yeah, hey, we've got some pretty warm weather in the forecast. Hopefully we can miss a few rains and get a big slug of this crop in the ground. As it stands today, if you were to plant today, I'd say most of your corn would be up in 6, 7, you know, 8-ish days, depending on what part of the state you're in and what your soil conditions are like. But that's a whole lot better than, you know, looking back 2-3 weeks ago where it was going to probably take more like 14 to 20 days. So yeah, we're in that week-ish time frame getting stuff out of the ground, which is great. And that'll basically hold true for soybeans as well in most areas. So anyway, that's it. I didn't want to type all that out, so I figured I'd shoot a quick video, just give you guys a heads up on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing. As always, if you got questions, don't hesitate to give me a call or your seed professional. So thank you. Have a great week and be safe.